You can find links to this product and more at gocellphonerepair.com/enclosure. I had an old laptop that quit on me and a netbook that hasn't really worked right since I bought it, but I still wanted to recover the files from the hard drives. So for $10 you can pick up an enclosure like this and theoretically turn the old hard disk drive into an external storage device. You'll see why I have my own screwdriver here in just a moment. So when we open up the box on the inside, you've got nice packaging. The design of this enclosure looks pretty decent. And down inside the bottom here, there's this kind of fake leather or pleather carrying case. And then we've got USB cables. And this is the one point where I thought I might actually need the instructions. I assumed this would be a very simple project to complete, but this USB is unusual. It's got one plug at one end and then two at the opposite end. And I didn't know what that was until I went through the instruction booklet to check it out. So I was just kind of baffled here by this whole thing. So it's got a decent amount of length to it. Obviously, you're going to be plugging this into your laptop or your tower. You don't need a whole lot of reach, and this should be sufficient. But again, I had to go inside the instruction booklet, and this screwdriver right here is what made me just kind of laugh. I couldn't imagine really using that for anything. It's even smaller than those little eyeglass screwdrivers, so not a whole lot of help. Hopefully, you've got another one on hand. Go ahead and unwrap this thing. And for some reason, I've got this habit of trying not to destroy packages just in case. Probably no chance I would ever return this because it's like $10. Actually, I think it was under $10. You can see there are a couple screw holes over here at one end. And I assume that's what the little black screws inside the package were for. So you can just slide out the end and see the interface for your SATA connectors right there on this little piece. So this is basically all of the hardware that does anything. The rest of it is literally just an enclosure. And this is a good fit for a 2.5. It plugs right in. I did not have any problem at this point. And it feels a little flimsy, but once you slide it into the enclosure, it's pretty solid. I'm confident this isn't going to fall apart on me. Now, as far as the screws go, you really have to see this to understand, but I was trying to figure out why the case had a hole on one side and then kind of a partially drilled hole on the other side, and it turned out that is because they screwed up in the manufacturing process. So not a deal breaker, but quality-wise, not exactly the best. And this screwdriver, as you can see, is just ridiculous. So I made an effort to make it work, and the screws are pretty tiny too, which I'm okay with that. I'm used to dealing with that kind of thing, but man, even after magnetizing the bit on this tiny screwdriver, it was just still a pain. I mean, seriously. I feel like I'm pretty decent with putting screws in because I work on phones, but this was just a combination of having a very small driver, screw holes that were not properly drilled out, and then these tiny, they're kind of a, not a machine, but rather like a drywall screw thread. One of them went in okay. The other one, I just could not get it to move, as you'll see here shortly. And again, that was because they didn't drill the hole out properly. So I switched over to my Husky because I just got tired of dealing with this. And what happened is that I quickly began to destroy the head on this screw. And you can see I'm just kind of struggling to get it to go in. And the problem, and I didn't realize at this time, is that they had made a mistake. So this thing is just jacked up pretty bad. And after I got the screw in, it would not go all the way in, which is the worst case scenario because then you just have part of the head hanging off of the device that you're working with. It gets snagged on all sorts of stuff. And of course, the more that you work on putting it in or taking it back out, the worse the screw gets. So I took a pick and attempted to kind of push this through to the right depth. But again, this is just me trying to make things work. And I wasn't sure exactly how far I needed to go. And this pick's probably a little bigger than it needs to be because it tapers at the end. So did not help me whatsoever. I ended up finally just going with one screw, and that worked out. It holds it in place, and it is functional, but don't expect to get perfection for under $10 when it comes to something like this. Here you can see I'm really just trying to apply pressure to get this thing to go in, but it will not quite go all the way. And I'm not sure what these screws are made out of, but they do get torn up very easily. So we're going to go with the one good screw that does work. and that should be sufficient to hold the enclosure in place. Now later on I may go back and find a screw in one of my spare sets somewhere, but eventually I decided just to take this out and set it aside because it is not going to work. Alright, so this is what it looks like when we finish. I've got my hard disk on the inside, and I did want to take a look at the instruction booklet, and that's where I figured out finally that there are 3 USB connectors, 1 for the enclosure, 2 for the computer. So you may be able to plug this in directly with 1 USB cable, or you may need to use that secondary cable and use up another USB port if you're not providing sufficient power to your drive. And I don't know if that's going to be the case for all drives, but it was certainly the case for mine. I plugged it in, it started to work for a while, and then it stopped. And until I connected that second USB to supply additional power, it just would not function at all. So pretty straightforward here. We'll plug this in, and the other end to the computer, and then the other end to the computer, and then we should have a working enclosure. And there you can see that it is in fact functioning. Oh, and by the way, we have this nice little sleeve that you can slip on if you want to protect the enclosure, I guess. Nothing spectacular, but it will get the job done. If you found the video helpful, like it, share it, check out my channel for more tutorials and product reviews, and most of all, remember to hit the subscribe button. Feel free to leave your feedback in the comments section, and thanks for watching.